North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. Glad you're here. We bring you the news, the real news. We analyze the news for fact. We make commentary, which is just my opinion. It is not the news. And then we have debate. That's between the two of us. And by all means, call me. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. That is 817-379-2172. Looking forward to hearing from you today. Lots of news to discuss. And let's get into it. Yesterday, I don't know whether you're aware of this or not, but we were having massive problems technically on this broadcast because in the computer age, you find yourself in a position where you use computers a lot and everything's fine. Life is good. Everything's good. Life is fine until your computer messes up. As you may have noticed, I have several computers on this table. This is News Central here. So I have one for news, and I have one for the music that we play, and I have one for the rundown of the show, and I have all that stuff, okay? And the one computer that I needed for all of my material was the one that was crashing yesterday about once every 5 minutes. It was annoying. I spent some time with Apple last night. I have to thank Francesco, who helped me through a bunch of things, and we got a few things. So cross your fingers today. And hopefully, with any luck at all, we'll be able to get through all of this pretty well. So let's discuss what's going on. The big story still is the alleged Highland Park shooter. He showed signs of trouble early on. This is like 3 years ago. The man accused of fatally shooting 7 people and wounding dozens more at a 4th of July parade has confessed to the rampage and considered another attack in Wisconsin, according to prosecutors. Lake County State's Attorney Eric Reinhardt and Robert E. Cremo III voluntarily admitted to the shooting to police when he was taken into custody several hours after the attack. He went into details about what he had done. No motive has yet been revealed. Lake County Major Crime Task Force spokesman Christopher Cavelli said after the shooting that Cremo drove to Madison, Wisconsin. That's about 150 miles northwest of Highland Park, and encountered another holiday event. He seriously considered using the firearm he still had in his vehicle. This was not the one that he used in the shooting in Highland Park, but another rifle. He was planning on using that rifle in this other shooting, but apparently Cremo decided against it. He had not prepared for it. So instead, he returned to Illinois, where he was immediately captured. Reinhardt said he expects to file attempted murder counts against the suspect for each person that was wounded and additional counts for people that might have been hit. Cavelli said some of the dozens of people wounded in the Highland Park shooting remain in critical condition, and more deaths could result. There are 7 counts of capital murder. A judge ordered the suspect held without bond. 7 counts of first-degree murder. At the hearing, prosecutors said police found the shells of 83 bullets and 3 ammunition magazines on the rooftop, from which authorities say Cremo opened fire. He wore a long, black-sleeved shirt as he appeared in court. By video, he showed little emotion as the prosecutor described the shooting and said little besides telling the judge that he did not have a lawyer. Police in Richmond, Virginia said today that they had thwarted a planned July 4th mass shooting. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a couple of moments. By the way, in case you're wondering, the suspect actually legally purchased his weapons. So these weapons were legally purchased. How did that happen? Well, I'll just report and you decide. USA Today is writing this. Cremo legally purchased the rifle he used in the attack in the Illinois shooting, despite ominous run-ins with police in 2019. In September 2019, police say Cremo threatened to kill everyone in his family's house. Police confiscated 16 knives, a dagger, and a sword. Cavelli said there was no sign he had any weapons at the time, firearms. 5 months earlier, police had responded to a reported suicide attempt. In September of 2019, Illinois State Police received a clear and present danger report on Cremo from the Highland Park Police Department. State police say no arrests were made, no family members were willing to move forward on a complaint, and no firearms restraining order was filed. Oh, okay. State police, who issue gun owners' licenses, said in a statement this week the suspect applied for a license in December of 2019 when he was 19 years of age, a minor for the purposes of the license, so his father sponsored the application. Cremo passed 4 background checks in 2020. There was insufficient basis to establish a clear and present danger and deny the application, according to state police. And that's how he got his weapons. The shooting prompted a massive manhunt involving hundreds of federal, state, and local authorities. The gunman initially evaded capture in the minutes after the carnage by dressing in women's clothing and blending into a panicked crowd. Authorities traced the gun, left at the scene to the suspect, released his photo with the warning that could be armed and dangerous. He was both. Cavelli said the suspect walked into a family home before driving away. A neighbor later saw him in the vehicle and called 911. A few hours after the shooting, a police officer pulled over Cremo a few miles north of the shooting scene. He was taken into custody without incident. Lake County Assistant State's Attorney Ben Dillon said in court the gunman looked down at his sights aimed and fired at people across the street. He left the shells of 83 bullet casings. And 3 ammunition magazines on the rooftop. Dillon said that Cremo was spotted running from the scene with a black bag over his shoulder and an object in cloth fell out of the bag and onto the pavement. The object was a Smith & Wesson M&P 15 semi-automatic rifle. The second weapon, also purchased legally by Cremo, was found in the car when he was apprehended. The Smith & Wesson MP5, or make that MP15, is regarded as similar to the AR-15, often used in mass killings, and the company describes it as easy to accessorize but hard to put down. Under Illinois law, gun purchases can be denied for people convicted of felonies, addicted to narcotics, and those who are termed mentally defective or capable of harming themselves and others. The suicide call in 2019 may have been enough to keep the suspect from getting a weapon, but under the law, mental defective must be decided by a court, board, commission, or other legal authority. The state also had a so-called red flag law to stop dangerous people from before they kill, but it requires family members, relatives, roommates, or police to ask a judge to order guns seized. Now, the thing about that is that there's another story out here that comes from Fox News. And it talks a little bit more about this guy's father. And his father apparently covered for him, for whatever reason, covered for him a lot. And I'm trying to figure out why this guy isn't partially responsible for this shooting. Let me give you these details from Fox News. The suspect in the Highland Park, Illinois, July 4th mass shooting that killed 7 and injured dozens had 2 prior incidents before the massacre. This, according to police. Robert Bobby E. Cremo, 21 years of age, taken into custody Monday evening after gunning down revelers from a rooftop perch at the Highland Park July 4th parade. Speaking to reporters at an afternoon press conference, Christopher Cavelli, a spokesman for the Lake County Major Crime Task Force, said Cremo had 2 prior incidents prior to the shooting. April 2019, an individual called police a week after learning of Cremo attempting suicide. The matter was handled by mental health professionals with no law enforcement. Okay, so mental health professionals. In September 2019, a family member reported Cremo had a collection of knives, was going to kill everyone in the house, said Cavelli. Police responded to the incident, seized 16 knives, a dagger, and a sword from Cremo's possession. Highland Park police notified Um, notified the Illinois State Police, but no other actions were taken. This is where it gets interesting. Despite these incidents, Cremo managed to legally buy two high-powered rifles and three other weapons that have since been recovered from his father's home. Cavelli said there was no sign that he had any guns at the time of the 2019 incident. Authorities arrested Cremo, who was interrogated the suspect and reviewed social media posts, have not determined a motive for the attack or found any indication that the targeted victims were targeted by race or anything else. And so once again, we have a situation where the father steps in to save the son. And yes, he did contemplate another attack. Meanwhile, 2 days after the suspected gunman killed 7 people at a July 4th parade in Highland Park, the community is trying to cope with the tragedy. Christy Steinberg, 42, grew up in nearby Buffalo Grove, lived in Chicago, but she and her husband decided to move to Highland Park about 11 years ago for a classic suburban reason: a bigger backyard, better schools, and the community feel. She had been to the July 4th parade every year since. Her son Hal, 12 years old, pointed out that it was her favorite or his favorite holiday of the year. I love this day. I look forward to July 4th literally, he's like, Mom, it's my favorite day of the year. I love the parade, she said. In 2019, Hal marched in the parade as a part of a float for Dr. Jessica Cohen Orthodontics. On Wednesday, Hal wrote the word "together" in a marker on the window of the orthodontics office to show community support. We're standing as a community. It's not just one person that's going to do everything. We have to work together. Even me as a 12-year-old boy, we were talking, me and my friends, about this. This should just never happen. We're all in this together about that. Good for them. Fred Kroll, 67, was positioned with his family outside Walker Brothers' original pancake house, a spot he called ground zero for the massacre. He said he saw 2 people lying lifeless. He tried to aid others who had been shot or wounded. One man bleeding from his head came up to Knoll and asked if he had been shot. Fortunately, the head wound appeared to be shrapnel rather than a bullet. Kroll grew up in nearby Skokie, but moved to Highland Park 36 years ago for its community feel and the array of welcoming trees, he said. He and several friends had regular morning coffee at that little French guy cafe. On Wednesday mornings, he waved and said hello to a series of familiar faces who walked by. So basically, small town America outside big town America. What is small town America doing to protect itself from big town America? Is there anything they can do? You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. That's 817-379-2172. Would love to have you join us. You can also find us on chat. We'll be getting to the chat coming up a little bit later on. At this particular moment, you're watching the Wells Report. Please keep doing so. We would appreciate it mightily as we get through this Wednesday afternoon. See, I knew what day it was. See, I'm improving. Yeah, it is the 6th day of July, and I even know the year, 2022. Back with more in just a couple of moments on the Wells Report. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. That is 817-379-2172. And I was so happy with myself because I said that while I was doing something else. What was I doing, you might ask? Well, I was playing around with my brand new fancy television equipment that allows me to do, if you happen to be watching on either YouTube or I think we got Instagram going today. I could be wrong. Anyway, if you happen to be watching, you'll be able to see me do this. How's that? Is that fancy? See, I have two ways of looking at you now. Or you have two ways of looking at me. Two different angles that also show you that the studio is still under construction. But I can do two ways. I can look at you two ways. I can look at you here or I can look at you over here. What do you think? Let me know. Let's see. So there is a chat room. So if you want to talk to us, yeah, when electronics fail, we're about lost. Yeah, my phone gadget locks up. I'm dead in the water. I'm hooked on it. It's like a viral organ now. That's a little weird. Okay, yeah, that your phone might be an organ. I got to be honest. That's a little weird. Anyway, let's see back there. Let's see. Go on. Oh yeah. Father cosign. We're going to get to that coming up in just a couple of moments. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that. Big Town America isn't attacking small town America. Okay, so gun violence has increased in all areas of the nation. Okay, all right. So there you go. I just wanted to let you know about that. By the way, Richmond police did something really good. They received a tip about a potential mass shooting on July 4th. Were able to thwart the attack before it happened. Richmond Police Chief Gerald Smith was going to hold a press conference earlier this afternoon and reveal details about the planned attack and the police response. Richmond police say the tip led to the seizure of multiple firearms. The news came after a July 4th mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois, that left 7 people dead and dozens more injured. The suspect in the case, Robert E. Cremo III, may have shown previous signs he was plotting an attack. Red flag laws in the state were not able to thwart that massacre. In September of 2019, ISP, the Illinois State Police, received a clear and present danger report on the subject, but he was still able to get through a background check. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And all you can do is just say, well, all right, and just move on. But one thing is for absolute sure, as we bring this to you today, the one thing that we can say for sure, the people that are best equipped to protect you is you. Learn how. If you don't want to carry a weapon, if you don't want to do that, then do this. Grab yourself a really good first aid kit. Grab a really good first aid kit and learn how to use it. If you have some military friends, make sure that you go through what's called Combat Lifesaver. It's got a new name now. They've just changed the name of it. But what I want you to understand is this. It is essential that you be ready for what may or may not happen to you in your life. You could be exposed to something like this. And I think it's high time and very, very important that you understand how to deal with it when, not if, it happens. You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number again is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Bringing you the news. We're bringing you analysis for facts. We're bringing you commentary. We are bringing you debate. This is indeed the Wells Report. And if you have something that you'd like to debate with me, then by all means call. Once again, 817-379-2172. Kelly Lyons asked if it's hot enough for anybody. Actually, it's kind of nice around here. I must be getting used to summer because it got to 95 degrees, and I said, man, I need a sweater or something. Okay, not quite like that, but close, This is the Wells Report. Back with more coming up in just a moment. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is still 817-379-2172. Operator is standing by. Matter of fact, I am right here, ready, willing, and able to help you out. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about something that happened today that is extremely disturbing. At least it is for me. Getting back into a little bit more about this supposed background check. Remember, a lot of people spend a lot of time talking about how background checks are absolutely essential. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, this one got muffed 4 times. It got muffed 4 times. Suspect in the Highland Park, Illinois 4th of July mass shooting was flagged by police as a clear and present danger in 2019. Bobby Cremo, the suspect in the mass shooting that killed 7 people, wounded dozens of others in the 4th of July parade, this, by the way, from Fox News, was still able to clear state-required background checks to purchase firearms on at least 4 separate occasions between 2020 and 2021, according to the ISP, the Illinois State Police. So in September of 2019, ISP received a clear and present danger report on the suspect from the Highland Park Police Department. The report was related to threats made against his family. This, according to Illinois State Police. This also correlates with a suicide attempt earlier. So a danger to himself and others. And he passed 4 background checks? 4. The report said that when the Highland Park officers went to the family home and asked Cremo if he felt like harming himself or others, he said no. Well, obviously, that's all you really have to worry about, right? Even though there were mental health experts brought into the case, went to the family home, so on and so on. Police said that Cremo's father claimed the knives in the house belonged to him, and they were kept in Cremo's closet for safekeeping. Based on that information, Highland Park police returned the knives to the father later that day. The statement said police did not make any arrests at the time. The members of the family were not willing to move forward on a complaint. Did that unwillingness to move forward, did that end up killing 7 people so far? Members of the family also did not provide information on threats or mental health that would have allowed law enforcement to take additional action. Additionally, no firearms restraining order was ever filed, nor any order of protection. Such action police could have taken included revoking a licensed gun owner's firearm owner's identification card, which is required in the state to own or purchase a firearm. Illinois State Police said at the time of the September 2019 incident, the suspect did not have an FOID card to revoke or a pending FOID application to deny. 3 months later, Cremo did apply, successfully obtained the card, according to police. The suspect was under 21. The application was sponsored by the subject's father. He co-signed it. Therefore, at the time of the FOID application review in January of 2020, there was insufficient basis to establish that clear and present danger and deny the FOID application. Suspect then went on to clear 4 background checks when purchasing firearms on June 9, 2020, July 18th, and July 31st, 2020, and on September 20th, 2021. Illinois State Police said the suspect did not have mental health prohibitor reports on his record, and his only criminal offense was possession of tobacco. That was a charge that was leveled against him in 2016. Police said that before the 2019 incident, they responded to an attempted suicide that same year in April. These also did not prevent the suspect from legally purchasing a high-powered rifle that he is believed to have used to kill 7 people on the 4th of July parade. So I have to ask this question. Is his father, his family, are they accessories before and after the fact? Are they accessories to this murder? What do you think? Telephone number, 817-379-2172. Do you believe that the father should face charges? Do you believe that the family has at least an accessory complaint possible against them? Telephone number again, 817-379-2172. You can also find us on the chat. Chat room is going on hot and heavy. And yes, it is definitely hot. I hear Highland Park keeps thinking, I hear Highland Park, you keep thinking of the one in Dallas County. Yeah. So here's the situation. Somebody in his teens having trouble, mental health issues. Is that something that disqualifies them from taking part in the Second Amendment of the United States? If you have a brush with police, are you in a situation where you should be under surveillance for the rest of your natural life? You know, these are the messes that we get ourselves into when we try to infringe on the Second Amendment. Have you noticed that most of the trouble that we have is when we infringe on a God-given right to keep and bear arms? See, I know this seems counterintuitive. I know that you're sitting here going, now, wait a second. Shouldn't we be able to know that this guy had some real mental issues? Well, what about the HIPAA law? Remember the HIPAA law? None of that information is available, or it shouldn't be available. Is it something that we need to relook at? Is that something we need to do? Now, there was a bill passed in Congress that most of us had real problems with because it essentially established a framework for government grants for states who wanted to work through red flag laws in their states, where someone can lose their firearms for doing nothing at all except worrying their family. Yes, they have to go to a judge. But then we start thinking about the politics of judges. So what have we done? We've created a gigantic mess. We've absolutely created a gigantic mess. And how are we going to get through it? One day at a time, protecting ourselves. Protecting ourselves. Illinois has some of the most stringent gun control laws in the entire nation. But wouldn't it have been nice if a half a dozen people there had weapons? One of the things that I teach when I'm teaching people how to handle firearms is I always make sure that they take a good hard look at the background. In this particular case, this guy was up on a roof. Now, would it be possible for the bullets to arc over or miss, the missing bullets to actually fall back to earth someplace in a neighborhood, etc.? Yes. Yes. But there would have been nothing stopping anybody, no background issues, no nothing, from clearing leather, taking aim, and at least putting suppressing fire on this sniper. But nobody had a weapon. Why? Well, because you don't need one. We'll keep you safe. We will. There were police right there. Did anybody look at the rooftops? No. Is it unreasonable that they didn't? No. It's not unreasonable that they would not look up there. It's not a problem, usually, except when it is. You know, we spend a lot of time teaching situational awareness. Where are you? What are you doing? Do you have to be more vigilant in these days? Do you have to be, okay, a little more paranoid? Now, it's not paranoia. There's a big difference between focus and paranoia. And so, what do? Well, we have to take responsibility for ourselves and our families. That's what we have to do. Two real good ways to do it. Get yourself a firearm. Carry it with you. Learn how to use it. Learn how to use it. When something like this happens, return fire if you can. But make darn sure you know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, then pick yourself up in a first aid kit and keep that handy. I've got several of them. I've got one in every one of my cars. Military-style first aid kits. I know how to use them. I also keep weapons with me, especially when I'm going out to things that are in a position where I can absolutely assume that at some point someone might lose their minds. It's only a question of time. It's a question of time before all this happens. To you. Have you made any kind of considerations? Have you thought about this at all? Hiding in your house, that's not a solution. Hiding in your house is not a solution. What I suggest you do is I suggest you take my advice and learn how to defend yourself and learn how to protect yourself or handle yourself in a first aid situation. It's not tough. It can be difficult. I mean, when you see somebody that's got a bullet wound, it changes your life. You're never the same. But you need to be able to know how to fix that. Don't know how many people would have been able to survive this thing if somebody was right there on the spot. All I can tell you is that first aid became an absolute priority in the American military. We fought in South Vietnam and lost 58,000 soldiers. Fast forward to the Afghanistan war, we fought twice as long and lost 10% of those soldiers because of the way we take care of people on the battlefield. Are you on a battlefield? Well, no. Most times, no. But what you got to keep in mind, and what is absolutely essential that you keep thinking about, is that the maniac gets a vote. The maniac gets a vote. Taking a look at some of these circumstances, doesn't an individual agree to give up their HIPAA law protections during background checks for gun purchases? No. There's no medical ascertainment in any of that. That is not an issue. Let's see, wasn't law enforcement present? How can civilians with guns stop gunfire when law enforcement struggled to find the shooter? The law enforcement wasn't in a position to be able to accurately figure out where the shooter was. Remember what's going on. This is a street lined with buildings. Okay? So somebody is up on a particular roof. The people that are being shot at have the best way, the best idea of where the shots are coming from. A police officer, either down the street or up the street, either side, has to contend with echoes. When you're talking about a typical street, those echoes move pretty quickly. And so it's very, very confusing. But the people that are there have direct sound. I've actually experienced this on a rifle range. You know where the rounds are coming from. You get a feeling for what the angle is as they go past you. God willing, they go past you. And so I believe what you're conflating there, Isaac, is how can civilians with guns stop gunfire when law enforcement struggle to find the shooter? Well, there are two ways of struggling to find the shooter. After the shooting, when he's running away dressed in women's clothing, melting in with the crowd, or just trying to find him after he gets into a car and heads down the road. That's the struggle you may be referring to. Yeah. By the way, Gary says that if I was to shoot again, I'd get instruction. Yeah, you will. You absolutely have to. You've got to get instructions. You got to know what you're doing. I was comfortable with my 22 long rifle. That's plenty caliber for me. It's plenty fine caliber. There's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, 22 Magnum. 22 Magnum is what I consider to be an underrated round. I think that is a very, very good round to have, and you can find nice weapons, lightweight, that you can keep with you, and so on, including 22 Magnum caliber pistols, which would have been a perfect response weapon for this. Then again, I'll just keep my M17 handy. That's what I'll do. You're listening to the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. So when you do this job, sooner or later, you're going to make mistakes. I have made mistakes. What I do that's different than probably everybody else, what I do that's a little bit different is that I correct them on the spot. I don't have my ego tied to this broadcast. I don't hide mistakes, because mistakes give you another chance to go through some things and try to get this right. The idea that we need to be able to get more truth at the end of this broadcast than at the beginning is one of our deepest, most important editorial policies here. We make absolutely sure that what we do is we get the story right. And people help. People help me out. And it's wonderful. How's it going, Chief Allred? What are you doing, brother? Anyway, and people help me out. And you can too. Go to the chat. Give me a call. Don't worry about that. I'm not afraid of being embarrassed because I make a mistake. I mean, I'm dealing with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, then let's see, 4, carry the 2. I deal with about 15, 20 stories every day. And they're all inside my head. And sometimes I get things wrong. If you hear something wrong, by all means, call me on the phone. Let's correct it. Michael Betchloss probably is feeling a little bit weird today because he got something wrong. Twitter users mocked MSNBC historian Michael Beschloss for posing a theory that the Highland Park shooter and Kyle Rittenhouse may have had something in common. At a July 4th parade in Highland Park, you know that a gunman fatally shot 7 people, injured 40 more. However, Michael Beschloss, the Morning Joe regular commentator, sent tweets questioning if the shooter had driven to the bordering state of Wisconsin in his escape of hoping to be acquitted in the state like Kyle Rittenhouse was. Why did Highland Park person of interest choose to drive to mass murder in Wisconsin of all places? Any possibility the Highland Park person drove to Wisconsin after yesterday's atrocity in the knowledge that Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted of all charges after the shooting there? Michael, Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted of all those charges because he was innocent of all those charges. Beschloss faced a flurry of criticism from social media users, noting several reasons why his theory was absurd. Washington Examiner columnist T. Beckett Adams mocked the historian for not understanding that you get tried for a crime in the state it was committed in, so the shooter would have been extradited back to Illinois anyway. Wait, do you actually believe trials are held in the state in which the arrest is made as opposed to where the crime was committed? You're a grown man and you believe this? Jerry Dunleavy said the blue checks are not well. Kimberly Morin said, you can't be this stupid. Well, yeah, and he's probably not stupid. But like I've said, it's amazing how many things that you think are really, really cogent and really, really important, and then you realize, I don't even know why I said that. That was what we call borderline stupid. And so you do take the slings and arrows. But, on Michael Betchloss's behalf, you really have to know what you're talking about. And if you don't know, don't say anything. Just don't. Joseph L. Petlin piled on. Tell me you don't understand penal law, criminal psychology, and Midwest geography in 2 simple tweets. Did it ever occur to you that he was closer to Wisconsin than the other states? Says Beth Bauman. More critics bristled at the MSNBC historian equating Rittenhouse to a mass murder suspect. November of 2021, a jury cleared the 18-year-old of all charges in fatally shooting 2 people during civil unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It followed the shooting of Jacob Blake. Betchloss's employer was mocked by conservative writer Stephen L. Miller, NBC News. That's all he said. Sometimes that's all you have to say. Betchloss recently called the High Court fascist and authoritarian for returning the question of abortion rights to the states to decide, overturning landmark Roe v. Wade. Last year, the historian was brutally mocked for comparing Senator Josh Hawley to Senator Joseph McCarthy for pointing menacingly in a hearing. Michael, you need to slow down, buddy. You need to slow down and be a little less, shall we say, shrill. You need to be a little less shrill and a little bit more into the reality of the moment. Not easy, because it takes concentration. You have to know what you're doing. And you have to have rules, and it comes with being a broadcaster for a very long time. Being able to figure stuff out is why Michael Betchloss has this job. And so he's sitting there thinking, and he tries to come up with an idea, and he muffs it. It happens. It happens. On the other hand, if it happens too often, maybe you ought to start thinking about a different line of work. That is a possibility. Just saying. Hopefully, it'll never happen to me, of course. You're watching the Wells Report. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast today. You can do so by calling 379 2172 on area code 817 379 2172. Waiting for your call, looking at your chats. Stick around. More of this broadcast, hour number 2, coming up next. The Wells Report is on the air. We'll be back in a moment. So, how you like the cameras? Ain't they pretty? I'll be back in a second. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. We bring you news. We analyze that news for fact. We draw contrast between facts and news. As we found out yesterday because of Gallup polling, people have less trust in all the news that we get than we ever have had before. And there's no excuse for it. There's absolutely no excuse for it. Because, as we've discussed, politics poisons everything. Politics poisons everything. And because politicians keep looking at things through the lens of politics, which is about opportunity and advantage. Politics is about opportunity and advantage. And working to try to maximize both to the benefit of your particular rice bowl, whatever that is. In other words, you make friends because most politicians just don't have an absolutely endless supply of money. You have to go out and solicit funding from other people. So when you're dealing with other people's money, what happens then is that you owe them, at least implicitly. I was talking about this because there for a little bitty moment, I was asked to run for an important office. And what I ended up doing was I ended up saying, okay, what do I do about these people that give me money? Are they expecting some kind of quid pro quo? And the person I was discussing this with, who was an excellent political consultant, said, what you try to do is you try to solicit funds for people who believe in your vision, as opposed to people who are like lobbyists that are essentially trying to buy influence. You try to find somebody that believes in what you're doing and believes in what you say and how you say it and what you're trying to get accomplished. And that is essentially, in my view, how politics is supposed to work. Because people that actually have a reason to run for office, as opposed to those that are just trying to enrich themselves on the public expense, and we got plenty of those. But the people that are actually working hard to be a representative in this representative democracy, a republic, need to make sure that the people giving them money are not trying to buy influence, but actually trying to be a part of the vision that you present and the reason why you're doing it. You and I don't look at things through a political advantage, through the political advantage opportunist kind of lens. We don't look at things like that. That's why people make such dumb mistakes when they get into politics. A little while back, I guess it was, I think it was the 2016 presidential election. What I ended up doing was I ended up saying, okay, for the next hour, I'm going to run for president. Ask me anything. And so people ask me all kinds of things. I mean, it was just a cavalcade of basic issues. And what they end up doing is they ended up asking me questions. I had answers because I'm not looking at things through a political lens. I'm looking at things through a constitutional, American service lens. I believe that if someone runs for public office, they are representing those who vote for them. It's not the money. It's not the money that creates a willingness to serve. It's not the money that buys influence. The currency is different. The currency in its best form is the vote. The vote from a constituent that believes in what you're doing, believes that you will represent their interests. That is the currency that you react to, not money. You're not there to enrich yourself. You're there to enrich society by representing the people who vote for you. That is the way politics should be. Hopefully, at some point, we'll see more of that instead of the other. But how do we get there from here? Simple. You stop electing politicians. You elect your neighbors. You elect people you know. That's what we did in 2016 when we elected Donald Trump. I mean, the guy wasn't our neighbor, but at least he was focused on the American people. He said, our government needs to put America first. And what happened? All of his political opponents immediately tied him to Nazi Germany, which was the overriding mess that Donald Trump's political enemies wanted to try to saddle him with. And so America First became this new neo-Nazism. Well, it should be America's first. It should be America first because it should be Americans first. The government of the United States should be working to the benefit of the people of the United States, not to the people of Central America who live crappy lives because their government is socialist. It is opportunistic. It is one hand washing the other. It is gamesmanship. It is craziness. Gary says, and the media was against Trump too. True. Why were they? Because the media had abandoned truth and chosen sides. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this broadcast. Not doing this broadcast to try to enlighten you with the greatness of my thought process. No, this is just a starting point. When I talk to you, when I offer my commentary, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just trying to tell you where I'm coming from. I want to know where you're coming from. And that's why the telephone number remains 817-379-2172. You can call me right now. You can chat with me right now. You can do it. Gary says, if I had a difference of opinion, I'd call in, but I haven't had one with you since I picked your show up several years ago. You educated me on vaccines. Yeah, I was talking to an excellent program director today because I'm trying to find a home for the Wells Report here in Dallas. And he allowed as hell that I was very political. Well, that's only an accident. This show's about news. Look at your newspaper. What do you read? Well, it's about politics. Politics should not have as big a role in our society as it does. Especially when you consider the people that are actually doing it. Let me give you an example of somebody who's probably not stupid and probably not evil. This is somebody who's trying to say the right thing instead of telling the truth. Democrat Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Now, what she's trying to do is she is trying to strike a more civil tone, which is something that we on the Wells Report called for. Well, we've been calling for it for 20 years, but what I've been talking about in the last couple of weeks is this hyperbolic, overcooked, hot, nasty rhetoric that flies back and forth. Might be good for headlines, but it's awful for society. And when you start accusing somebody of Nazism, it belies the simple case that you don't have anything better to say. You cannot compete in the actual forum of ideas. You can only compete by trying to denigrate the person that you're running against. That is wrong. Absolutely wrong, and should be something that is set aside immediately by we the people. Why? Because that way, when someone says something absolutely nasty about you that has absolutely no basis in reality, none, the people that are now turned away from politicians and start looking to elect their neighbors, they're going to hear a whole bunch of things that are terrible about their neighbors. That's not the issue. The issue is not the character of the person running against one of these machine politicians. And yes, the mainstream media is a part of that machine. And so people say, "My God, I didn't realize that Bill down the road here, liked to turn his lawnmower upside down and catch hapless chipmunks and throw them into the blades while he was spinning. That's awful." It's also baloney. And we have to set that stuff aside in order to get a better quality of government, one that represents us instead of political interests. Like I was saying, Lori Lightfoot, speaking at an event, is trying to clean up the mess, she said, when she said F. Clarence Thomas. How nice. That was just really nice. She decried attacks on police officers in her city, suggesting it's a sign of people losing respect for the institutions of our democracy. Like she said to an associate justice of the Supreme Court, F yourself. She's also had overheated rhetoric about the police officers in her own department. And it's awful. So she's now talking about losing respect for the institutions of our democracy. That says to me that there are people acting so brazenly. They have absolutely no respect for themselves. They don't have respect for the institutions like the police. Men and women every single day on every watch are literally risking their life and limb for our safety. But toxicity in our public discourse is a thing I think we should all be concerned about, right? Yes, Ms. Mayor, we absolutely should be. After alluding to the horrific massacre in the North Chicago suburb of Highland Park that resulted in 7 deaths and 30 injured in a 4th of July parade, Lightfoot stressed the importance of community and urged residents to respect each other and focus on what brings us together and not what tears us apart. My immediate response on that is, okay, Ms. Mayor, I will if you will. And it's something that we have to stop. And when people start doing it, we have to stop them from doing it immediately. When somebody ends up trying to turn the particular issues of the day away from what they truly are and to somebody who's criticizing them, society hurts. Society is damaged. And we have proof because we see it every single day. So that's absolutely hypocrisy number one. There's all kinds of hypocrisy right here. They're all kinds. And that's what we're going to discuss next. We absolutely have to stop hypocrisy. We have to call people on overheated rhetoric and nasty grams to everybody for any reason whatsoever. We got to hold them accountable for that. No, whoa, stop. We have to cool the public debate. And what she says is correct. We have to stand together as a community. We have to work together. Well, politicians have to quit tearing us apart for political advantage. More about that coming up in just a couple of moments. You're listening to The Wells Report, watching it too. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. Back with more in a moment. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast. Waiting for your chat. If you are on Facebook or you're on Twitter or you're on Twitch or you're on any number of other streaming services, make sure you join us. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. Pep was listening to me talk a little bit about why we do the things we do on the Wells Report, and he says, Mrs. Wells is the only one here with more authority than JD. Not true. This isn't about authority. This is about information. I'm just sharing information. I think about it all the time. I do the background work. I always have, always will. And so what I try to do is I try to put all this stuff together in something that you can use to make better decisions with. I don't try to tell you what those decisions ought to be. That's only for you in the privacy of your thoughts and beliefs. What I'm trying to get done here is I'm just trying to give you more information to think with. That's all I'm trying to do. There is a group out there called the Southern Poverty Law Center. I've been incredibly critical of this organization for years because they're, as I was talking about in the last segment, their hypocrisy knows no bounds. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in case you do not know, is a leftist nonprofit organization that tracks hate groups in the United States. They're not saying anything about pro-abortion hate groups. Fox News Digital reached out to the SPLC, and they did not respond to multiple requests. And Fox News asked whether or not the SPLC was monitoring Jane's Revenge or Ruth Sent Us, and whether or not they were planning on adding those two groups to the hate list. Both groups had been linked to several acts of lawlessness across the country that targeted the Catholic Church, opponents of abortion, the families of Supreme Court justices. Jane's Revenge broke windows and defaced the facade of a Minnesota pregnancy center before boasting about the crime on social media, saying we should have done more. The Hope Clinic for Women, which the Metro Nashville Police Department describes as a pro-life resource center, was hit by a Molotov cocktail attack. This happened last week. Jane's Revenge, spray painted on the side of the building. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee rightfully called the incident terrorism. Should have been prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Why wasn't it? Jane's Revenge is named after an underground group that helped women undergo illegal abortions in the days before Roe v. Wade. Was also linked to a firebomb attack at a pregnancy center in Madison, Wisconsin. In late June, Jane's Revenge was linked to vandalism at a Catholic church in New York City, where the phrase, "If abortion isn't safe, neither are you," was spray painted on the building. Ruth Sent Us picketed outside the homes of conservative justices, a violation of both state and federal law heretofore unenforced. Shortly after, a man was arrested outside the home of Brett Kavanaugh after allegedly plotting to assassinate him. Ruth Sent Us called for protests outside the house of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, posted details about her children's school. That is terrorism. In total, 50 attacks against pro-life organizations have been carried out, which prompted the Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton to call on the Department of Justice to investigate. Have they done so? No, they have not. Houses of worship, pro-pregnancy centers are under attack. The Family Research Council has compiled a list of more than 50 attacks against churches, pro-life pregnancy centers, other pro-life groups in the past few weeks, Senator Cotton wrote. A left-wing extremist group called Jane's Revenge has taken credit for many of these attacks, including firebombings and grotesque acts of vandalism. The FBI has opened 200 threat assessments since the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Have they done anything with it? Not so far. You're listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Join us. Tell us what you think. Do we really need to work on this unbelievable hypocrisy? I say yes. What do you say? Tell us on the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. You found it. News, analysis for fact, commentary, debate. My commentary is simply my opinion. My opinion is just as valuable as yours. So share it. 817-379-2172. You know, we were just talking about the Southern Poverty Law Center. They have a real problem trying to figure out exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're a nonprofit organization. They have corporate, therefore they have corporate responsibilities that they simply ignore. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, I went through their website again. I do that every now and then to see if I'm still on it. And fortunately, I'm not. I was at one time until I sent them a very carefully written letter and said, you better knock this garbage off or you're going to get into court with me and I'm going to win. And so that all disappeared. And the thing about it is that they have trouble figuring out where the real bad guys are. For example, Jane's Revenge very happy about the 50 attacks that they pulled off on pregnancy centers around the country. I'm still trying to figure out how many Molotov cocktails have been thrown by Oath Keepers and Proud Boys. Still looking for that. Maybe you can help me out. I don't know. Here's another one. There are a couple of them. Environmental groups keep getting crazier and crazier and crazier. They have continued to advocate and protest for extreme policies to combat climate change. And they're doing this amid a global energy crisis. It's not a global energy crisis. It's an American energy crisis. And it was essentially created by our own government. Organizations, the Sierra Club, Greenpeace. Greenpeace has actually sunk ships. The Sunrise Movement, the League of Conservation Voters, have doubled down on pushing the Green New Deal, divestment from fossil fuel projects, banning oil and gas production. You know, I don't understand that. You know, Mother Nature gave us coal, oil, and natural gas and continues to do so. These are not fossil fuels. We're not going to run out of fossil fuels. They're going to be around forever as long as there's plant life. And there are the effects of this great earth that takes such care to make sure that we have a mostly consistent living arrangement. Oh, they're curveballs. You know, suddenly you're peacefully minding your own business, enjoying summer, and then all of a sudden there's a thunderstorm that's throwing baseball-sized pieces of ice at you. Those will take you out. Yeah, if you're outside, you're going to get hit. But more or less, things on this planet have been really, really good for life for millions of years. The people on this planet are not going to destroy this planet. People have no idea how large this planet is. They just don't get it. And that includes the Sierra Club, Greenpeace, Sunrise Movement, League of Conservation Voters. This petroleum that we have, this coal that we have, it's all a gift from Mother Nature. And what ends up happening is we use this, we react it to our benefit, and that creates the process to continue. It is a continuing, sustained process. But what they keep doing is concerns about energy shortages in Europe and spiking fossil fuel costs in Americans that are experiencing both are symptoms of our continued reliance on fossil fuels. This is according to Kelly Sheehan, the senior director of energy campaigns at the Sierra Club. She told Fox News in a statement, as long as we rely on volatile global commodities like oil and gas, we'll always be vulnerable to geopolitics and the whims of greedy fossil fuel executives. Well, why weren't they supporting President Trump's initiative to make the United States energy independent? Why weren't they doing that? The current situation only underscores the need to make a rapid transition to a clean energy economy as possible by making bold investments in clean energy and energy efficiency, not doubling down on the same risky fossil fuels that got us into the mess we're in now. They're not risky. They're not risky. These fossil fuels are fine. They're doing just fine. You know, you want to see a real environmental mess? Then let's just see a couple of lead acid batteries catch fire and explode. Let's do that. But they just ignore all that. They don't keep in mind the manufacturing process necessary to make these things. It's toxic. I mean, really toxic. You know, our cars put out carbon dioxide and water. And carbon dioxide is supposed to be the big thing that's going to drive the entire world into ruin. It's 0.06% of our atmosphere. 0.06. The atmosphere is extremely thick. And it circles a planet that's 24,000 miles in circumference. Think about how much air that is. And they don't. And what they want to do is they want to get rid of oil and gas and coal and so on and so forth, and it's ridiculous. These are the same people that force coal power plants to completely change the way they do business. It cost them billions of dollars. They made all the changes, still not good enough. Still not good enough. The air now is cleaner than it has ever been. Our water is cleaner now than it ever has been. I used to live down the street in Brevard, North Carolina, from the Olin manufacturing plant. They had these chemicals. They had a creek that they built that they just dumped into the French Broad River. You could see it pouring into the river. It was this nasty, green, stinking mess. And they just, well, that got taken care of. Was it because of the work of the Sierra Club and all these other League of Conservation Voters? Yeah. There is a place for them right up to the point where they start getting twisted around the axle, and there's absolutely no reality in their arguments. And now we're going to leave quadrillions worth of dollars. That, by the way, is 1,000 trillions. A trillion is 1,000 billions, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to just leave that. We're just going to leave that for what? You know, I was listening today. I was listening today, and we got all this wonderful news about how the president of the United States, in order to drive gas prices down, has actually gone ahead and opened up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Only one problem. The problem is that a lot of that oil is going offshore. It's being sold to China. It's being sold to Europe. I don't have any problem with Europe. I don't. But until China wants to be something less than an absolutely arrogant and horrifyingly terrible adversary, forgive me, but I don't think we should be doing business with them until they figure out that trying to take shots at us and trying to weaken our country is a bad idea. That's what I think. What do you think? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. So these environmental groups, long famous for all kinds of really nasty tricks on people that they disagree with, they're not a hate group. Let's go back to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Richard Cohen is listed as the former president on, this is from their website. He's listed as the former president. He wrote this. Each year, the Southern Poverty Law Center, of which I am the president, then why does your byline say former president? I'm confused. This tells you a little something about the organization. They don't have their crap together. They don't have their crap together. They don't actually connect the dots. Each year, the Southern Poverty Law Center, of which I'm the president, compiles and publishes a census of domestic hate groups. Our list, which is cited extensively by journalists, academics, and government officials alike, because it's a handy political tool, not a tool of reality, but actually a handy political tool, provides an important barometer, not the only one, to help us understand the state of hate and extremism in America. In recent weeks, we've received a number of requests to name Black Lives Matter as a hate group. I'm not going to say one way or another whether Black Lives Matter is a hate group. I think the video of burning buildings is very eloquent. I think the things that happened in the name of Black Lives Matter speak for itself. But that's just me. I'll just ask you, do you believe that Black Lives Matter is a hate group? It's based on racism. First, last, and always based on racism. They have decided that Black Lives Matter more than anybody else's lives, period. And anybody who disagrees is obviously a chainsaw, corrosive, horrifyingly terrible bigot. As they go out and they loot Target stores and burn down Wendy's and fire lasers into the eyes of police officers and burn down federal buildings and so on and so forth, but not a hate group, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Why? Well, because the Southern Poverty Law Center is not about hate groups. It's about the suppression of people who disagree with leftist intent. What do you think? These are the things we have to deal with. And this leftism is getting to us. And there are people that are warning us. You know, we've spent an awful lot of time talking about how the left is really tearing at the actual fabric of the United States. We all woke up to the unbelievable knowledge that Bill Ayers and other members of the Weather Underground from the 60s, who, by the way, bombed the Capitol building, somehow managed to stay out of jail. They're actually working on making sure that they are the people teaching our children. They're teaching our children. How did that happen? Well, we are not the only place that had that problem. A Chinese immigrant who witnessed Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution warned against the indoctrination of children with neo-Marxist ideologies because she'd seen it before. She'd seen this before, and she is warning us that we have a major problem that we simply must fix. Why don't we? Because anytime anybody does, they're branded as bigots. They're branded as domestic terrorists. The FBI gets called. And because the FBI is, again, poisoned by politics at this particular juncture, what they do is they go out and they suppress debate. They suppress angry parents at school board meetings. And all that's in broad daylight. And yet, for whatever reason, we, the people of the United States, refuse to stop them cold. There are state and federal laws that stop people from trying to intimidate judges all across the country, but in specific, the Supreme Court justices. And they are not enforced. They don't get to pick and choose what laws are enforced or not. They don't. What they must do is they must enforce the law. Is it corruption? I don't know. I don't know whether it's corruption or not. I know it's corrupt. And when you're in that situation, what do? Well, you sort of kind of have to follow the money. Are we following the money enough? Who's responsible for following the money? That's right. The American media is responsible. But the American media has abandoned truth and chosen sides. All the while, the trust in American media circling the drain toward the abyss of oblivion. You would not be here today if NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, even Fox News, if they were doing their job, you wouldn't be sitting here watching this broadcast, would you? This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. Arthur Davenport is a guy who I've known ever since he was a little bitty baby. We drove hot rods together. I know where all the bones are buried, buddy. Anyway, he asked me this question. He says, hey, JD, without CO2, what would be the average temperature of the Earth? Something tells me that without CO2, it might be incrementally cooler. But the thing about it is what you and I both know, Arthur, because we lived in the high desert of Western America outside of Los Angeles in the bad old days when you could taste the air in LA. And we would get the winds coming off the Pacific that would blow all that junk up to the high desert, which normally had beautiful, pristine air that was just absolutely at 4,000 degrees. We were all baking. Yeah. It was gooey and it was nasty and it was dirty. And the reason it was gooey, nasty, and dirty is because now our cars, our hot rods, we kept those things tuned. We kept those things tuned so that basically they didn't put out pollution, and we could prove it. But then again, we were rebuilding our carburetors every 2 weeks. I mean, we were constantly working on our cars, trying to get the very most performance out of them as we possibly could. But that's not what typical people did. They were driving 73 Oldsmobiles that were pumping out photochemical smog with every revolution of the engine because they weren't efficiently burning the fuel. That doesn't happen anymore. Then what ended up happening is somebody came up with the idea, I know what we'll do is we'll use catalytic converters. Yeah, that'll be great. What we'll do is we'll inject air into the exhaust and run it through a catalyst, which will heat it up to about 5,000 degrees. And what ended up happening is that people would pull off the road into dry grass, and there would be a fire set up. I mean, it was ridiculous. But what was more important is that those things would take gas and react it, and sulfuric acid was formed. That still happens today, but it happens at a minuscule level. Like I said, the only thing coming out of cars right now is CO2 and water. So when I say that the air has never been cleaner, I'm serious. Again, that was the work of people that really cared about the air, and that was good. That was a very, very good thing. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is that these people want to destroy an essential part of the American economy for the sake of their politics, which is nuts. So what I would say is this. One of the reasons why the earth is warming, the one that I prescribe to, has nothing to do with people, except, of course, that we've made our planet so much cleaner. The atmosphere over our heads is so much cleaner now than it's ever been. Ever. It's never been this clean, and therefore more sunlight hits the earth. In other words, if there's a reason for global warming, that's it. Arthur says, based on quick research, Earth would be about 59 degrees Fahrenheit cooler. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. 0.06% of our atmosphere is carbon dioxide. There's no way that it would be responsible for almost 60 degrees. That's propaganda, Arthur. Absolute propaganda. Also, by the way, an Earth without CO2 would be dead because there'd be no plant life. We, animals who live on respiration, emit carbon dioxide. Plants live on carbon dioxide. There is a renewal that goes on every single day. All these people that are talking about it absolutely is wrong, Arthur. So it's crazily, stupidly wrong. Anyway, the thing about it is that what we keep screwing up here is if we were really serious about carbon dioxide, we'd be planting more plants. That's what we'd be doing, but we're not. What we're trying to do is we're trying to eviscerate the greatest, most wonderful source of energy that any civilization could ever have access to. And all these people refuse to take yes for an answer. They refuse to take yes for an answer. All these cars are polluting monsters. We fixed it. Oh, now they're putting out CO2. That's not a problem. That is not a problem. Well, look at Venus. Venus has got an atmosphere that's mostly carbon dioxide, and it's got the temperature of molten lead. That's true. It's also millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of miles closer to the sun. We don't have to worry about a runaway greenhouse effect. We don't have that problem. And like I said, if you want to cool off the Earth, okay, 59 degrees is fantasy land. But if you want to cool off the Earth, plant more trees. That's what we did in the 70s. Remember Earth Day Art? We were there for the first one. So all this is poppycock. And we have to start living our lives based on that. Back with more in just a moment. Thanks very much, Art. I appreciate that. Appreciate the thought. Thank you very much. And we'll be back coming up in mere microseconds. north to south, coast to coast, and around the world. I'll tell you why I say that in just a second. This is the Wells Report. You get the news. You get the real news here. You don't get some cockamamie garbage gobbledygookian swindle, which, by the way, is what news has turned into, so much so that the people of the United States have almost zero regard. I mean, down to the teens of trust. Teens, okay? Seriously. I just got some breaking news that that it's almost, when I say, hang on a second here. ZL1, Okay, when I say that that this broadcast goes around the world, I was just talking about how, and I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now. I've been talking about how of all the energy sources in the world, petroleum, natural gas, all of that stuff those are all gifts from Mother Nature. They are completely natural. Those are all natural gifts from Mother Nature. And guess what happened? Somebody just sent me this. So I'm going to read this off my phone. I'm fascinated by this. According to this article, it's mountain cedar time in the big city. Yeah. So what has happened? The European Union, the parliament there, has just declared nuclear power and fossil fuels as green energy. Environmentalists are stunned. Well, the same political process that decided that all of these sources of energy were these horrifyingly terrible things that were going to destroy the world. Literally, the sky is falling. Okay? The Chicken Little agenda. The European Union just voted to label fossil gas as green energy. This will delay desperately needed real sustainable transition and deepen our dependency on Russian fuels. This is Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg, remember her? She was the young woman who was in the autistic spectrum that was essentially used as a political tool by all these people trying to perpetuate this green energy hoax, the sky is falling agenda. Yeah. And what she's talking about is how Europe is now deepening their dependency on Russian fuels. Why? Why are they deepening their dependency on Russian fuels? Well, in my personal opinion, so that means I have to look over here. In my personal opinion, the reason that I think Europe is dependent on fossil fuels is because they're trying to say screw you to the United States of America, who paid for their defense against the old Soviet Union for decades during the Cold War, while they refused to pay their NATO dues until, oh, wait, who was that guy? Oh, yeah, Donald Trump decided that it was more important that NATO pay their own bills. Anyway, so what ended up happening is that as soon as we poured trillions of dollars into Europe over the entire Cold War, as soon as Russia imploded, predictably, as soon as Russia imploded, suddenly Europe started buying Russian petrochemicals. I'm sitting there going, really? Why don't they get their natural gas from the people of the United States? Put some of that money back in our pockets. If Ms. Thunberg, you're all upset and worried and so on about the horrific idea that you're dependent on Russia for natural gas, buy American. All these fuels are green fuel. All of them. And they also said nuclear power was green. True. Again, another gift from Mother Nature. Uranium is an amazing fuel source. It's absolutely amazing. So, so why don't we use it? Well, there have been accidents, and that's true. Why have there been accidents? Well, because essentially we waste all the energy in uranium and nuclear fuels. We waste it. What are we using nuclear power for? We're using it to heat water. All a nuclear power station is a giant steam turbine plant using nuclear fission as the heat source. Now, do we make mistakes with it? You bet you we do. We absolutely do. We make huge mistakes with it. The Fukushima nuclear power plant, they had 4 power plants that all melted down. You know why? Because for some reason, when they were putting all these nuclear power plants together, they figured that the essential pieces, the emergency cooling backup, didn't need to be outside a protected containment vessel. The reason that the Chernobyl nuclear power plant melted down and actually got to the Earth, which, by the way, did not go all the way to China. Hello. China Syndrome, another hoax. It was a good movie. It was a good movie. It was wrong, but it was a good movie. And so what ends up happening is that the reason it actually poisoned so much of Ukraine and Pripyat and so on, the city is still abandoned, will be for probably 100 years or so, is because there wasn't a containment vessel. Because they're expensive. Building these containment vessels for these reactors is essential. And every system that is critical to maintaining a safe nuclear reactor simply must be protected. Simply must be. And the Fukushima nuclear power plant didn't do that. Didn't do it. So the absolute necessary protection of the backup cooling systems after the tsunami hit the power plants was useless. And so the system went down. And so the nuclear reactors weren't properly cooled. And they melted down. And a lot of people are dead because of it. Mostly people that worked at the power plant trying to save a bigger disaster from happening. But because Japan actually followed precepts of American nuclear power, they had containment vessels around all of their reactors, and they worked again. And so nuclear power plants, aside from the fact that we are absolutely wasting real energy, just to heat water. It's primitive. Because we're doing that, that's the only kick I have against nuclear power. You got to make sure that all the essential systems are covered. They are protected from anything. And do we have examples of that? Yes, we do. We absolutely do have examples of that. What are they? Well, the nuclear power plants in submarines. Yeah, but they sink. Yeah, but they don't poison anything. Why? Well, because seawater is an excellent... First of all, the reactors automatically scram. In other words, they shut themselves down. That's thing number one. They are shielded because they are also encased in a containment. And so what ends up happening is the radiation doesn't get out. They don't have to worry about poisoning fish, blah, 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 blah. The actual machine oil will have a devastating effect on fish and so on and so forth, more than the actual nuclear power plants, because the nuclear power plants are being cooled by seawater. That's thing number one, if they are even breached at all. And they're not doing any damage. We know. We keep checking on them. Every year like clockwork. Every single nuclear submarine that has sunk, the ones that haven't been salvaged already, They're investigated to make sure that that's not happening. And as we know, because of something called Project Jennifer, if there's a problem, we can actually go down there and get those reactors and remediate them from there. And so, what's wrong with nuclear energy? Nothing except a Jane Fonda movie. Jane Fonda movie is the only problem. Well, what about 3 Mile Island, John? Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that was a real problem. Sure was. That was a mess. That reactor partially melted down and all the safety equipment worked just fine. But what about the radiation that was released? Yeah, there was radiation released. There was. And the people that were close to the power plant actually got 1/100th of a dental x ray. Maybe. 1/100th of a dental x ray? Uh huh. Yep. And so nuclear power is green. Fossil fuels are green. And the people that are absolutely losing their minds over the use of fossil fuels as some sort of devastating mess. Oh my God, it's a devastating mess. They're just not thinking. They're not thinking. Gary Absher says, I hope I live long enough to see them perfect fusion power. We need more helium. Well, yeah. Yeah. But fusion fusion is a long way away. Why is it a long way away? Well, a couple of different reasons. You see, fission is splitting of atoms that generates heat. Fusion, on the other hand, is where we take atoms and we press them together and we create other atoms. In other words, it's like having a small piece of the sun right here on Earth. And that makes me epically nervous. Because if something goes wrong with a fusion reactor, oh my, that is a bad thing. Because imagine taking a small piece of the sun, say about a bowling ball piece of the sun, and putting it on Earth. What happens? Well, it pretty much does in the Earth. So we have to be very careful about fusion power. Is there more power? Yes. Is fusion power almost absolutely clean? Yes, it is. But we have a long way to go to get there. Not because we don't have the technology, we know how to do it. The reason we don't do it is because there are quadrillions of dollars worth of oil and natural gas and coal underneath the surface of our Earth given to us by Mother Nature. And we're not going to start working on fusion power until we need to. And that's okay too. Because fusion power is like importing a small piece of the sun, and I think it's damn dangerous. I really do. So we'll see. So guess who's thinking about doing something about running for president? Stick around, I'll tell you. This is the Wells Report. Welcome to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. So, somebody is considering a run for president in 2024. Who do you think that is? Well, I know who it is, and so do you. It's Donald Trump. In the first hour of this broadcast, by the way, this is the third hour of the Wells Report. Make sure you check out the other podcasts because they're available to you. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Mountain Cedar. Yeah. Anyway, tomorrow I promise to take some Zyrtec before I come on the air. I promise. So, according to the USA Today, and remember this is biased coverage, okay? Donald Trump's prospective campaign to reclaim the presidency in 2024, and this is how they lead the article. The article is about Donald Trump considering making an early announcement that he is going to run for president. Here's how USA Today leads the article. Donald Trump's prospective campaign to reclaim the presidency in 2024 faces legal and political jeopardy. But allies say some potential roadblocks, including the threat of prosecution, are actually motivating him to run. Does that seem counterintuitive? I'll explain in a moment. As he ponders how to announce and when to do it, he's dealing with revelations about his conduct during the January 6th insurrection of 2021. Pushback from a rising number of Republicans, which is wishful thinking. And above all, the prospect of an unprecedented indictment of a former president. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. We do not prosecute those people with whom we disagree politically in this nation, and we should never start. Remember, in the first hour of the broadcast, I was talking about how we need to elect our neighbors. Well, we did. Donald Trump, not a politician. Does he make mistakes? Plenty. And are those mistakes exploited by professional politicians who obviously don't make any mistakes ever? Please note the sarcasm. We are being asked to believe that anything that Donald Trump said in private among his advisors is perfectly okay to be spilled out in front of the American public in a very carefully edited, cherry-picked way to make him look as bad as possible. We are being expected to believe that this guy is some sort of monster, that he's a threat to democracy. In point of fact, he's not a threat to democracy in any way, shape, or form. He is a product of it. No, it's a threat to democracy. Not democracy, democracy. Because what he's doing is he's blowing up this anti-American Democrat Party and their agenda and the agenda of the radical left, which is essentially taken over the Democrat Party. Do I believe that all Democrats are socialists? Hell no. Do I believe that indeed, when it comes right down to it, as I've told you, politics is about advantage and opportunity. Do I believe that people that are hungry for power are willing to do what's necessary to get more political power? Sure, I believe that. That's what socialism is. In a socialist country, the government runs everything right into the ground. And so, we, the people of the United States, in the election of Donald Trump and his presidency, blew all that to pieces. And so they're attacking him at every possible turn. Now, is some of this stuff true? Yeah, I'm sure some of it's true. I'm sure a lot of it's true. Does it matter? Does it matter in any way, shape, or form? We'll discuss that next. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks for being here today. Donald Trump is considering a 2024 run. What do you think? 817-379-2172. You see, as I was talking to you about just a second ago, about electing our neighbors, electing non-politicians, the political machine is in full-throated glory right now, trying to destroy the possibility of Donald Trump running for office again. The Republicans don't want him. The Democrats don't want him. But I think we, the people of the United States, do. That's what I think. And besides, who cares what I think? Who cares what the Washington Examiner thinks? Who cares about the January 6th committee? Who cares about all of that? The only people that pick the president of the United States are the people of the United States. They're the only ones that know who the president should be. And so none of these people, this part of the 26,000 that I keep talking about that lead this entire country around by the nose, has any idea what they're talking about. Is it okay for them to talk about whatever it is they want to talk about? Absolutely. No problem whatsoever. By all means, just spew and watch your ratings fall through the weeds. That's okay. Do whatever you think you ought to do. Okay? But you got to remember something. You don't speak for the people of the United States. These 26,000 people, 1,000 people in Washington, D.C., that's all that's out there. There's 1,000 people. Governors and so on and so on, 1,000 people. Big city mayors, about 1,000 politicians that lead this country around by the nose thanks to the mainstream media, and there are about 25,000 of them. I mean, it's a nice job if you can get it, but you know what? If you have that job, your job is not to tell people what they should think and what they should believe and then stomp anybody that disagrees with you. Your job is to provide them with the facts. Here's a fact. Donald Trump may run again. Will he win? Who knows? We, the people, know. The people of the United States, the only ones that do. All the rest of this is a lynch mob. Now, there's an interesting thing here, okay? Donald Trump says, I'm going to run simply to clear my name. Simply to clear my name. By the way, Langston knows that 74 million people voted for Donald Trump, but he said, now, wait a minute, 81 million voted for Joe Biden. Let's say that Joe Biden runs for president again. How many votes is he going to get? And let's assume he actually wins. He'll win with somewhere around 65 to 69, 70 million votes. How are you going to explain that the president of the United States got reelected with 15 million fewer votes? As a matter of fact, if Joe Biden wins again, he's not going to hit 74 million votes. But Donald Trump did. What are you going to do about that? How are you going to explain that? I just want to put that out there just so you guys can start thinking. How are you going to explain that 15 million voters turn their back on Joe Biden if he wins? Anyway, getting back to what I'm talking about here. Donald Trump makes mistakes. Let me give you an example of one. Okay? His spokesman, Taylor Budowich, made this statement. Yeah, Langston points out that President Obama got fewer votes in 2012 than he did in 2008. True. He got 69 million votes in 2008, and he got 65 million votes in 2012. But that's still between 65 and 70 million. Okay. But as we know now, the real political powerhouse during the Obama years wasn't President Obama. No, the real political superstar there was Joe Biden. Because as soon as Joe Biden ran, my God, he blew the doors off of the vote totals of President Obama. Who would have known, looking at Barack Obama, probably one of the most brilliant presidents we've ever had? Ever. Who would have known that Joe Biden, who cannot string together 3 sentences in a row, would be the actual boon to America that would generate 81 million votes? And when he gets down to 65 million, if he wins again, the difference between 81 million votes and 65 million votes is too big to explain by saying, well, there's just some natural vote erosion. Yeah. Natural vote erosion, huh? I'm making a prediction. Watch and learn. Watch and learn. Not because I'm some guru. That's not it. This is my opinion. But watch. Anyway, let's get back to Taylor Buttigieg. Okay? Peter Buttigieg says, talking about Trump running for re-election, the American people remain hungry for his leadership. That's a quote. Quote, the American people remain hungry for his leadership, unquote. There's a word that's used essentially to describe socialist politicians that create around them something that's referred to as a personality cult. And what happens is that the person that has a personality cult around them is in this echo chamber, this cocoon of butt kissing, and pretty soon they think that that's real life. Well, the simple case of the matter is that personality cults are part and parcel of socialist rule. Note that there for a while, the hottest commodity in Russia was the seed of Vladimir Putin. There are actually women trying to have one of Putin's babies. Really? That's a personality cult. All right. Okay, so that being said, what Taylor Buttigieg says, the American people remain hungry for his leadership. What he should have said, and what he would have said had he known what he was doing, he would have said, the American people remain hungry for real leadership. A completely different statement. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you get away from professional politicians. We have to look past all that. We have to look at somebody saying, okay, Donald Trump's the issue. That's not the issue. We're going to have double-digit inflation when 2024 rolls around. That's another prediction. We're going to have double-digit inflation when Donald Trump runs for president again. If he does, in 2024 we will have double-digit inflation. There's no way to avoid it, unless the president completely reverses himself, opens up the Keystone Pipeline, and starts doing something about making America energy independent again. Because when America's energy independent, all these other countries in the world don't have a marketplace, and the price goes down. You can't tell people to just put a price cap on oil from Russia and expect anything to happen. You can't tell these people to start pumping more oil and so on and so forth. No, you have to use the power of economics to drive prices down. How do you do that? Well, you take away the American marketplace. No, that's okay. We got enough fuel and petroleum to be able to do anything we want to do. So we got all that. So unless Joe Biden does that, we'll have double-digit inflation. And so with double-digit inflation, what happens next is President Biden becomes the second term of President Carter. And you think that the mainstream media has gone ahead and abandoned Joe Biden? Wait until that happens. So we have to overlook the mistakes. Teddy Kennedy said it best. He said, you take the bad with the good. Donald Trump has a real downside. He really does. But what he doesn't have is a downside, and I'll just draw a comparison. The people running the Joe Biden administration, because it's not Joe Biden, hate America. They hate the American people. They want to make our prices higher. They want us to live a more austere life. They want to take as much political power away from the people of the United States who got that power from the Constitution. Therefore, they attack the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And so what they do is they try to gather all of this political power so that they can essentially walk around feeling endowed beyond their actual intellectual and practical capability. We already see endless opportunities for politics to usurp reality. No. Inflation isn't caused by our policies. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, the thing about Donald Trump running again, this gives him an opportunity to clear his name. Because nobody's given him a chance to clear his name. To this day, 25,000 people show up, about an average of 25,000 people show up at every event he shows up for. Every single one. There is no politician that can make that happen. As a matter of fact, I got to be honest with you. I was surprised at it. I was absolutely surprised at how many people wanted to show up to Donald Trump events. It was absolutely amazing. It was incredible. I'm sitting there going, really? Every single one. No matter where he was, no matter where in the country he was. And so what did they do? So what did the mainstream political machine do? Well, they talked about how stupid the people were. Slapping around their fellow citizens for the sake of their politics. Again, 25,000 people telling 74 million people that they're all bigots, deplorables, domestic terrorists. They're a threat to democracy. No, they're a threat to democracy. And republicancy as well. Okay? Don't forget. Donald Trump completed, he succeeded beyond any president in my lifetime, including Ronald Reagan. Because Ronald Reagan had 2 terms. Trump got most of the same stuff done in 1. And he had 95% of the mainstream media crapping on him with every broadcast. 95% of all the stories about Donald Trump's presidency were negative. He had Republicans and Democrats alike sabotaging his administration at every turn. And yet he still got more of his agenda done than Joe Biden has gotten of his. Now, am I a Trumpaholic? No. I'm not a Trumpaholic. I'm an observer. I'm just telling you what I see. And these people are saying, ignore your lying eyes and just do what we tell you. Just handle things the way we tell you to handle things. Huh? I'm sorry, what? Are you serious? And the answer to that question is, yeah, they're serious. What are you doing? Well, I'll tell you what you're doing. You're trying to change the United States of America into the Federal Republic of America and turn it into a politician's playhouse. Pass. Let's see. J.D. Trump called Americans sons of bitches. No, he actually ended up calling a bunch of NFL players that were kneeling during the national anthem sons of bitches. What do those same people call President Trump? And that's the thing about name calling. Happens all the time. And he was the president. You're listening to the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for being with us this afternoon. There are 3 podcasts here that you can find on Facebook and Twitch and Twitter and Sleepy. There are 4 of them. Actually, there are more than 4. Hang on a second. There are bunches of them. Okay. And by the way, this show is a lot easier when the computer that has all your notes and all your talking points actually works. That's a lot easier. Yesterday was a disaster. And the reason it was a disaster because I had to go from memory all the articles that I read. And I read a lot of articles, okay? Read a lot of articles. And I have to tell you that while most of that stuff goes in, it's getting it out that's the difficult part. Because there's a lot of stuff flying around in here, all right? And so I use the articles from CNN and Fox and USA Today and the New York Times and all the other places that I go. And I go everywhere, the Daily Mail, I go to Express UK, I go to a lot of places. I go to Agence France Presse, I go to German media in order to get the stories. Because as we all know, the American media has abandoned truth and chosen sides. And what you have to do is you have to go to all these places and you have to correlate all this stuff. Well, you read 2 or 3 different versions of the same story and things begin to get a little muddled, especially when you can't refer to them. Now, I'm not making excuses. That's funny. Just as I say that, my computer decides to go down. So I have still work to do to get this thing working. But I'll get it done because I figured out a way. So, Pat Cipollone. If you don't know who he is, don't criticize yourself. He is the former White House counsel during the Trump administration. He is widely credited with stopping President Trump from calling in the Klans on the 2020 presidential election. Because of this, he has certain celebrity status with the January 6th committee. And you'll note that I have been exceedingly critical of the January 6th committee because they've shot themselves in the foot. What they have done, let's see. Your video of you is dark. It's hard to see you, JD. Do you have an Apple podcast? Apple podcasts work on Android too. Oh, yeah. No, it's not me. The picture coming, it might be you. Pictures look pretty good here. So I'll find out, I'm sure. Anyway, Pat Cipollone. So he's the former White House counsel. And what the January 6th committee has done is subpoena him because what they want to do is they want to talk to him. So what did they do? Well, he's going to honor the subpoena. He's actually going to testify. Well, why is that a problem? Because he's going to testify behind closed doors. We know Republican operatives tried to sabotage the Trump administration. Is Pat Cipollone trying to sabotage the next Trump administration? Don't know. But there is a thing called attorney-client privilege. There's also executive privilege. And when I say the January 6th committee has shot itself in the foot, it truly has. And I'll tell you why. Because they're laying down precedents that will be followed up on by the Republican Party if the Republican Party has the guts to actually follow through on it. The reason that they're going after Trump so hard is because what they've done is they've shown President Trump how to stomp out his political opposition. And there's nothing that they can say to stop him. Eric Holder famously ignored a congressional subpoena because the Republican Party didn't have the balls to go after him. The Democrat Party had the balls to go after everybody. Had him arrested by the FBI, which is now, of course, the law enforcement arm of the Democrat platform, the Democrat political platform. Those are the stormtroopers of the Democrat Party. And so what they ended up doing is they enforced their subpoenas by arresting people. You think Donald Trump's not going to do that? Of course he will. That's why they have got to do anything to keep him from running in 2024. Because if Donald Trump returns to the presidency, it's Katie bar the door. Does that make me nervous? A little bit. A little bit. Because President Trump is... He's kind of flighty. When you have that much political power, you've got to use it very, very, very judiciously. Very judiciously. So now Patrick Cipollone is going to testify behind closed doors. We already know that the January 6th committee cherry picks its so-called evidence. There's no evidence that makes President Trump look good. Are you trying to tell me that in everything that they have, nothing makes the president look good? Not real. That's called exculpatory evidence. And they're not showing you any. All of these things are very carefully edited to make President Trump look as bad as possible. Because President Trump gets out, he's going to have people arrested for not appearing before committees that the Republicans will put together if the Republicans have the balls, and I don't know that they do. And he's just going to run roughshod over all of these Democrats, and they deserve it. It's the only way President Trump has to clear his name. So in their efforts to gnash their teeth and move left and right in their revenge, mostly left, what they're doing is they're creating the conditions for their own demise. There's more. It's tomorrow. Thanks for watching the Wells Report. I'll see you then, okay? Take good care. Have a nice night. As my wife tells my son every day,